You are literally like full stop hindering yourself. I'm telling you now, if you're not losing weight, it's because you are probably listening to horrible, horrible advice that's telling you to do a million things at once, and it's just a bunch of information overload that doesn't serve you. Please forget about all of that. You have time in the day to prioritize these actionable steps that you're going to take. Try it out. Even if it's just for a month, it's going to change your life. Hey guys, my name is Irina. I'm a personal trainer and a nutrition coach, and my goal is to make all women feel beautiful by achieving their dream bodies and simplifying fitness. Today I want to talk a little bit about why you aren't seeing results, why you're not losing weight, and a lot of it has to do with the advice that you're following. People pay a lot of, doctors, personal trainers. I know this because I've been paid a good amount of money to give this information. And the truth is, a lot of this advice is not practical, it's not sustainable, and it also just lowers your confidence because it makes you feel like you can't do it at first, when the reality is you are listening to extremes in the beginning, and that's not the best way to start. So that brings me to my first point: stop listening to extremes. When you first start out, you're probably overloading a ton of information, whether it's from YouTube or from TikTok or whatever it is, and usually it's not bad information, but it's just not practical for somebody in the beginning. So there's one side telling you that you have to count every calorie, you have to count every gram of protein, you have to work out every day, but also focus on cardio, but also focus on weights, but also focus on your mental health, but also focus on Pilates. And there are so many things being spit out into the ether. This is why a lot of people get overwhelmed and never start. So my goal is to simplify everything for you moving forward, because that's essentially what's going to create your dream body in the future, is just by starting small. And the other side is telling you something along the lines of you have to eat intuitively, or you have to focus on your gut health, you have to focus on what your body enjoys eating and stick there, focus on your hunger cues, which again, I don't devalue that information. I think that's very helpful, but it's just not practical to people in the beginning. Eating intuitively is something that you build up. In essence, eating intuitively is a privilege, okay? If you are eating like garbage and you enjoy eating like garbage, how are you supposed to eat intuitively? How are you supposed to trust yourself in order to do that? Eating intuitively and aligning with your goals, if you're trying to lose weight, is not something you can do in the beginning, because you need to unlearn those habits. If you have never dived into eating better or eating healthier, chances are you're probably not eating that great right now. And if you eat intuitively, if you listen to your body right now, it's not gonna align with your goals. That's why I kind of don't like when that piece of advice is spewed out to beginners, because that's more of a top of the mountain goal. Right now, you need to learn what it is that your body can stick to. And then once you can do that, then you can trust yourself enough to eat intuitively. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. And same thing with eating protein, working out 5 to 6 days a week. That is something you build into. That's not something you can do now. That is also a privilege. That is something you've developed all the habits for it. You've developed the mindset for it. And you can now, have a separate goal of, getting toned, gaining some lean muscle, feeling better, having some lifting goals. And then that's when you can get to that goal there. And you're probably going to be much more disciplined at it because you've already built discipline with the micro habits that you've started. But most people don't want to take the time to build those micro habits at first. And that's what this video is about. So step number 1 is stick to 2 to 3 actionable, simple items that you can stick to right now. And also be okay with it sucking in the beginning, because it will. Now, what are these 2 to 3 things going to consist of? Number 1, you're going to pick something that curates a new diet culture for you. This is going to be a very small step, but it's going to change the way you eat for now. You can say, I'm going to eat 1,700 calories a day and see where that takes me. You can say, I'm going to give up dairy. You can say, I'm going to have 2 cups of fruits and veggies a day, or something of the sort. Make a small, simple rule, but make it a micro habit, not to the point where it changes up your entire day or it makes you obsess over what you're eating. Just make it something to where it's like, okay, I need to follow this one little rule and that's it. This is going to help make the process a lot more streamlined and easy for you, simple to follow, but also it's sustainable because you're not following a 1,000 rules. So this can be literally anything, but do not make it super restrictive. I don't want you to cut out any food groups. Now, cutting out like dairy is one thing, but cutting out a whole macronutrient, I don't want you to do that. So don't go out there cutting carbs, cutting fats, not the vibe, not the rule, because again, that makes it not a micro habit anymore. That makes it a very, very harsh, rigid rule to follow. And we're trying to avoid that in the beginning. Make it simple, make it sweet, make it cute. Once you have that action item in place and you've engraved it into your head that you're going to follow it, your next action item is going to involve moving your body, whatever that looks like, okay? So that could mean I'm going to take a mile walk every single day, regardless. Or if it's not every single day, say I'm going to take a mile walk 4 days a week. Point blank period, like, and engrave that into your head. Don't think about any other exercise unless you like feel up to it one day. Don't think about any other exercise. Just stick to your walking 4 days a week, and that's it. You can also say something like, I'm going to take this Pilates class. If you've been curious to do that, I'm going to take this 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And that's going to be your new rule. Pilates is a little expensive, so I wouldn't say 4 days a week, but you know, if you want to do some wall Pilates at home or go to the gym and do it that way, that's fine. I'm going to do my ab exercises 3-4 days a week, something like that. So essentially what you're doing here is establishing a micro habit. This is a very, very small yet super effective rule to follow that's going to get you in the process. Okay, we're not trying to like go crazy here. We're trying to get in the process because that is what's going to catapult you forward into achieving your dream body. The third thing, if you want to add a third thing, I recommend that it involves any habit that improves your mental health. This could be literally anything. It could be taking an art class. It can be a small little thing like taking a cold shower in the morning, helps you with clarity for the day. It can be, I'm going to go see my therapist. You're going to make it a rule to finally go see a therapist. It can literally be, I'm going to start getting 8 hours of sleep a day, non-negotiable, which is something that you should already be doing. Not sleeping enough will definitely deter you from reaching your goals. Whether you add that into your plan or not, make that a priority. Definitely get your 8 hours of sleep. In total, you should have 3 small rules that you are going to follow, okay? Forget about everything else. You don't need to learn about CrossFit, or you don't need to learn about keto. You don't need to learn about all these other things that can be very overwhelming and super, super taxing on the body. Follow these 3 rules. Start there. So just to recap, your first rule is going to be about your diet. You're going to change up something, okay? One little thing. Remember, we're not cutting out any huge food groups. We're just changing up what we eat, whether it's adding something to our diet, taking something away, or sticking to a caloric restriction, which if you are going to do that, go ahead and look up your calories on some calorie calculators, gauge your average, make sure it's not too low. I personally never recommend anything under 1,500 calories unless you are literally under 5 foot. But other than that, you don't need to go lower than that. Remember, we're not trying to be super restrictive here. We're trying to create something sustainable. You know, I always say 1,700 calories is a great start. It's still high enough to get your protein and nutrients in, but it's also low enough to where you're probably eating less than you usually do. It's still a deficit for most women. But again, gauge that on your own, see where you are. That's where my personal calories are. And I see that that's effective with a lot of other women as well. Remember, second thing you're going to do is move your body, whatever that may look like. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to do yoga 4 days a week. I'm going to, lift weights, and I'm going to follow this plan that I put together. And listen, if you want to get to the gym and start out by doing 3 days a week in the gym, which is always recommended, 3 days a week lifting weights is usually the target for beginners. So if you want to start out by doing that, but you don't know where to start, I have linked the most simple, perfect weightlifting plan for you, absolutely free, down below in the description. These are workouts that I have done that have helped me, and they're super beginner friendly. They are literally just with machines. So it's something that you can start out with and not have to, be very overwhelmed when you go to the gym because you already know what you're doing. So you are welcome. Use that if you are wanting to lift weights at first, which I personally recommend. I think it's the best way to lose weight. That's just my opinion. But again, we're not trying to get too deep in the weeds here. We're just trying to start one little little goal that's going to catapult us forward. And then later on, you can learn to lift weights if that's something you want to dive into. Take however long you need to start being consistent with these 3 things. They always say it takes 21 days to develop a habit. If that's how long it takes you, that's amazing. If it takes you longer, keep sticking to those things. If you fall off, that's fine, but get back on it whenever you can. It's okay to have bad days. I have bad days. They do not keep you from achieving your goals. If you can't stick to those 3 things, if it is getting absolutely very difficult for you to stick to those things, pick something else. You can always go back in and amend whatever rules you establish for yourself. Go in and say, you know what, this diet really isn't working for me. Instead of sticking to 1,700 calories, that's causing me to be obsessive and weigh my food and it's not sustainable. Instead of sticking to that, I'm going to stick to just eating more fruits and veggies throughout the day and limiting processed sugar. That's it. That's all I'm going to stick to. I'm going to eat however much I want, but I'm going to stick to that rule and follow that. So remember, you can always go back, change things, but give yourself some time. You never know if things will stick with you well or not until you give it a chance. Give yourself at least 3 weeks to stick to those goals. It's important to remember that it's going to be difficult during this time. I don't like using the word restriction because I personally think that restriction was something horrible for me. I didn't like restricting myself. It's something that caused a lot of issues in my life. But here is the thing. In the beginning, it's going to feel restrictive. And I am tired of people lying about that. It's going to be hard in the beginning. It's supposed to be hard. I'm not saying you need to be restrictive, but you absolutely need to be disciplined. In the beginning, it's going to feel like shit. Yeah. Because you are unlearning old habits, okay? You usually eat like a piece of crap. So if you are not eating that way, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel weird for you. That does not mean you give up. Remember, stick to that little rule. If you need a day, if you are literally like, man, I really am craving this today, have that, but stick to the rule. There's ways to stick to that rule while still having things that you enjoy. So just remember that. There's creative ways to go about things. I don't want you to think of this one food rule as a diet. A diet essentially involves much more than just one rule. And the thing about diets is that they do not work. They just don't. Studies have actually shown that diets actually make you gain weight, not lose weight. I know. So you're sitting there torturing yourself, not eating, being super restrictive. And not only are you messing up your metabolism because now your body thinks, oh, we need much less calories to function. You know, this person is not eating. So we got to lower the metabolism down, make sure we're not burning a lot. So now your metabolism slows down in order to save you. Our bodies are not made to look the way we want them to. Our bodies are literally made to survive, especially as women. Our bodies do not care about losing fat. It's actually the last thing it wants to do. It just wants you to survive. So if you are restricting, if you are eating very, very little, your body is going to adapt to that. It's going to say, okay, we need to slow down because this person is essentially dying. That's what it's going to think. But also, you're going to be miserable. You're going to torture yourself, essentially. You're going to give up very fast. And not only that, you're going to lose hope very fast because you think of yourself as the failure rather than the diet. The diet is always the failure. It's not you. The diet always fails, and that's how it is. So instead of sticking to a diet that says, I'm going to give up carbs, right? And that may just be one rule, but it's a very, very rigid rule. Okay, this rule involves taking out a lot of stuff that you are eating right now. And that's not the goal. Remember, this new rule that you're going to make, this small but effective step, this should not involve changing up everything you eat. It should just involve making one small change that's going to be effective over time. And I know some of you guys may be sitting here thinking, well, I want to lose weight now. I get it. Listen, we want to be snatched as quick as possible. I get that. But the quicker you lose weight, the quicker you will gain it back. And that's just the truth. There's some people out there who think they can lose 40 pounds in 2 months. And that is not ideal unless you are very, very big. And not only that, but if you are doing that, you may lose a lot of weight. But then once you go back to eating normally, because you can't go on forever the way you're eating like that, you're just going to gain that weight back. It's inevitable because your metabolism has adapted to eating that way. So it's not going to have it if you try to eat more, which is so horrible. Stop doing that to yourself. Why do you need to go from one extreme to the other? Why can't you just meet in the middle? Find the confidence to meet yourself in the middle and create small changes. That is what's going to catapult you into your dream body. So that brings me to my next thing. In the beginning, it will feel a little bit restrictive. It will. Now, I don't want you going hungry. I don't want you going starving. Now, it's okay if you're a little bit hungry. Listen, we got to go through that in the beginning. I'm sorry, baby girl, but that's what we got to do. It's okay if you feel like shit. It's fine. Keep at it. You eventually will not. As long as you're fueling your body, as long as you feel satiated, you will be fine. I promise. Stick to it and you will be okay. Now, in terms of setting yourself up for success with these things, a great way to do that is to plan your days the night before. Start getting a little bit organized. Some of you guys are more organized than others, and then some just are completely scatterbrained all day long. And as somebody who used to be like that, I'm not going to judge. I genuinely cannot organize my thoughts to save my life. So writing things down the night before has really, really helped me. I have timestamps from the time I wake up to the time I brush my teeth and this and that. You don't have to go that extreme, but I find that it does help me organize my day. And the reason I add timestamps is because sometimes people tend to add a little bit too many things to their to-do list, not realizing how much time it takes them. So adding timestamps really helps me facilitate what I'm able to handle and what I can't. The night before, just say, okay, according to these new rules, this is what my new day sounds like. This is what my new day looks like. You can also, we live in the age and era of technology and amazing things. You can literally go on ChatGPT. I love talking to her about everything. Like, she's a queen. We love chat. Go on ChatGPT. Look up, I have these 3 rules in my life now. I'm going to eat 1,700 calories a day. I'm going to go for a walk 5 days a week, a mile long. And then I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep a night. Walk me through what a day in my life looks like based on these 3 rules. Walk me through what I can eat. Walk me through what time I have to walk according to the weather in my city. You can ask her so many things and she can literally delegate an entire plan for you for the next day. If you don't want to do so on your own, you have the resources. You don't have to be super productive in the day, but sticking to a couple of things that do improve your health, whether it's mental or physical, and then sticking to things that are aligning with your goals in terms of your body, your weight, and your appearance helps you a lot. Which brings me to my next point. In terms of your, new food rule, whatever that may be, that actionable step that you're going to take, start looking up what recipes align with this, right? So if you're going to go into a caloric deficit and you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to eat 1,700 calories a day, go on YouTube, go on TikTok, look up what I eat in a day in a calorie deficit, what I eat in a day to lose weight, what I eat in a day on a cut, right? Any of those keywords will work. You'll find some amazing recipes. They align to that new actionable step that you are setting for yourself. But also it helps you kind of try new foods out. It helps you enjoy life a little bit better because you're not being super restrictive and you're trying out new foods and you're liking what you're eating. So that tip is also very, very helpful. And I do want to point out that while we are all busy, we all have a 9-to-5. I work a 9-to-5. I have a social life. I have a husband. Like, I have a lot of stuff in the day that I need to do. I do want to point out that you have spare time in the day. And if you want to argue with me on that, I want you to go in your phone, look at your screen time, and then come back to this video and tell me that you don't have spare time. I'll wait. You have time in the day. You have time in the day to prioritize these actionable steps that you're going to take. If you're watching this video, it obviously means that you want to create some change in your life in terms of your body and your activity level and your diet and everything regarding your appearance in terms of weight. You obviously want to change that, right? Or else you wouldn't be watching this video. That means that you're going to have to tweak a couple of things in your life. And in this case, your diet, your activity level, and a couple things that make you feel better in the day. And you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to spend the time to do that. And what makes it so great about this approach is you don't even need to spend that much time and energy on it, just a little bit. It takes an hour to walk 2 miles, okay? If your rule is to, cook your food at home now and be conscious of what you're eating, if that's your new rule, you're not gonna eat out anymore, you're gonna eat at home. Go grocery shopping, do the work that needs to be done to set yourself up for success. Because again, it's going to be hard, but it can be easier if you set yourself up and allow things to happen much more efficiently for you. Most people do a million things. It puts their body into shock. I can't stress this enough. It's just the wrong approach. Stop listening to the extremes. And also stop listening to the people who are like, you need to focus on your gut health first. Listen, I agree. You absolutely need to focus on your gut health. But listen to me. That can be very overwhelming at first if you have never taken a look at what you're eating in a day. That is such impractical advice. Not to mention it's not specific at all. So where the hell are you even going to start? I don't like that advice being given to beginners. Start with that one rule, and then guess what? When you have developed that habit and now you are, 3-4 months in and you're starting to see a lot of progress with your body, because you will by that time. If you stick to those things, you will start to see progress in many ways. By that time, you will have built a much more disciplined routine. And not only that, but you're kind of used to eating that way. You're kind of used to following those rules. You're used to going out for a walk. You're used to going to the gym because you've been doing it for months. So it's now a habit. It doesn't require as much discipline. So at this point, now you can add things onto your routine, right? You've already stuck to those 3 things and they're like a piece of cake now, right? They're part of your routine. You don't even think about doing them. You just know, I got to go to the gym at this time. Like, you don't even think about it. Now that things are a lot easier and more streamlined for you, now you can add things on top of that. If you want to look into those more gut-friendly foods, if you want to say fuck it to all the food rules, which I do recommend you do this at one point in your journey, but if you want to start saying fuck it to those kind of things after month 4 because you feel good and you feel like, I just want to eat intuitively, I don't want to restrict myself, I don't want to do these things, now you can, because you can trust yourself enough to still eat in a way that aligns with your goals. You don't crave processed sugar every day. You don't crave macaroni and cheese every night. You don't crave donuts and sweets and all that stuff. And again, those things aren't bad, but a lot of people crave these things all the time, and it's because they're eating that way. It takes a while to kind of detox from those things. And when I say detox, I don't mean like itching for those things, but I just mean it takes a while to like train your body in a way to not want those things anymore. And once you do that, now you can eat intuitively. Now you've gained that privilege of trusting your body in a way where it doesn't sabotage you. Same thing with your exercise. If you are just taking walks right now and you're like, you know what, this is so easy for me, I want to ramp things up. Now you can add another thing on top of that. Along with walking, I am going to follow this three day a week workout split. So I'm going to walk and I'm going to lift weights. Now it's going to be a lot easier for you because you've already developed the habit of walking. So that part's a piece of cake. The issue is at first, everybody throws a million things onto themselves and then it feels all way too new to the point where they're very uncomfortable. They can't do it. And that's why they give up. Their body's in literal shock. So habit stacking is the best thing ever. Everybody who has lost weight can tell you that they started out somewhere small. I started out somewhere small. I literally, began by cutting out dairy. And then I was like, this is cool, but, I want to ramp things up some more. And then I started learning more about caloric deficit. So I started making that rule. I didn't care what I ate as long as I stayed within my calories. And then I started learning about gut health. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to learn to stay in my calories, but also to eat these gut-friendly foods and cut out these foods. And, it's a process. You can't do everything at first. So start with that one rule. It's the best thing you can do. You have a much higher chance of succeeding with this and keeping it long term because you've already built some discipline. Okay? Think about an actor, right? They're not going to start out in Hollywood early on, unless you're like a Nepo baby, but you're not going to start out in a big Hollywood film early on. A lot of people do commercials, short skits, this and that, and then they build themselves up. It takes years. It's the same thing with your mindset, with your discipline. It takes a long time for you to build discipline and give yourself grace during that time. Which brings me to my next point, and this is probably the most important. The mindset that you need to be in is this. Ready? Imagine a person who is disciplined. Imagine a person who works out, who eats healthy. Imagine a person who does these 3 things, okay, religiously, like you have made it a point for yourself to do. Imagine that person and become that person. I'm not saying this to be like repetitive. I know that we all hear be the person that you want to be and like manifest that. Like, I'm not talking about like moving and flowing like that person. I am talking about stop speaking to yourself in such a negative way. You are literally like full stop hindering yourself by doing that. Think of if you were in a relationship, okay? If you are in a relationship with someone who is toxic, with someone who is shitty, with someone who talks down to you constantly, okay? They're like, you're ugly, you're fat, you're lazy, you're this and you're that. Think about being with a person like that. And then think about if that person needed something from you, okay? They said, it could be something as small as, go make me some food. You are going to be very reluctant to do that, okay? You are not gonna wanna do that for that person. Why? Because they suck, because they're rude to you, because you resent them. It is that deep, the relationship you have with yourself. Probably more extreme than that. If you are talking to yourself horribly and you constantly tell yourself, man, I can't stick to anything. This is why diets don't work. Again, you talk to yourself and you lose confidence and you lose hope in everything. Man, I can't stick to this diet. I can't stick to anything. I'm just not meant to be thin. I'm not meant to have a fat ass. I'm not meant to look the way I want to look. If you continue to speak to yourself that way, guess what? Your body is not going to want to do anything for you. It's exhausted. Your subconscious is tired of you. You are wearing it out. You are literally telling your subconscious that you suck, you don't amount to anything. And guess what? It's going to believe you. Words are very, very powerful. I can do a whole video on this. And before you say, I speak to myself in a great way, really ask yourself if that's true. Really ask yourself, do you wake up in the morning and look at your body and think bad things? Because these can be very internalized things that you don't even realize. Really ask yourself, be honest with yourself. How is my self-dialogue? How is my self-esteem? How is my self-efficacy? Do I speak to myself in not even a nice Delulu way, but do I speak to myself with some grace? Ask yourself that. And if you don't, you need to fix that before you implement these rules. Now, somebody who is following those rules that you have just established for yourself and somebody who is disciplined does not speak to themselves in a bad way. If that means you have to be delusional, then be delusional. I don't care what it is. Stop speaking to yourself negatively. I'm not even going to go further into that because it's going to piss me off. If you catch yourself speaking to yourself in a bad way, if you catch yourself telling yourself, man, I can't do this, challenge those thoughts. So those are my biggest tips. I hope that helped you. I will say that these things take time. They're not going to develop right away. I'm telling you now, if you're not losing weight, it's because you are probably listening to horrible, horrible advice that's telling you to do a million things at once. And it's just a bunch of information overload that doesn't serve you. There's no purpose in it right now. Forget about all of that. Quiet your brain. Give yourself some grace during this time. Follow those 3 rules that you made for yourself. Have a better mindset moving forward. Try it out. Even if it's just for a month, it's going to change your life. Thank you so much. I love you all. And I really, really hope that this helped you. Let me know if you have any ideas on what you'd like me to touch on because I am newer to this. I just want every woman to feel good in their bodies and help you guys. So let me know. Thank you.